Hello, welcome to today's webinar about modeling in AAC use and with AAC users. My name is Jessica Broderick. I'm a speech language pathologist and assistive technology specialist, currently practicing out in Western Nebraska. So I just want to say thank you to the Nebraska Assistive Technology Partnership for giving me the opportunity to talk to you today. So in this webinar series that we are doing, what my biggest goal by the time we're all said and done with this is that we can move our AAC users from being present in the classroom, so they are physically in the classroom, to being able to participate in the classroom, to being able to compete in the classroom and compete with their peers and share that information that they want to share and be very active competitors. And so one of the ways we're going to talk about doing that is through using modeling. And this is a way that we teach AAC when we're working with students who speak using AAC. So what we are going to talk about today is just defining modeling. I found some really nice videos that I really liked that hopefully will give some more information about this. Different types of modeling, and then practical strategies of how we might do that and what that looks like. Okay, so defining modeling. So the first thing I want to tell you is that modeling is the best teaching tool. You know, I hear a lot, I get a lot of questions about, well, how do I teach AAC? How do I teach them? And my response is always, how are you modeling it to them right now? And you know, the idea behind that is that we can't expect students who communicate using AAC to learn how to do that without seeing it in action. You know, one of the things I say about this is that it would be like teaching a student who is going to be using sign language to sign without signing to them. And so you can see how that wouldn't make sense. And so it doesn't make sense in AAC either. And so this is a graphic on the right-hand side of your screen is a graphic that I like and I use in a lot of presentations. And it says that by 18 months, babies have heard 4,380 hours, excuse me, of spoken language, but we don't expect them to be fluent speakers yet. So I don't expect a baby who's a year and a half old, even though they have heard these thousands of hours of language, to be a fluent speaker. And by that same token, if our kids using AAC only see those symbols modeled to them, so our model language or our spoken language in this case is us modeling those symbols and how we're using that. If they only see that twice a week for 20 to 30 minutes, which, you know, typical speech therapy session, right? It will take them 84 years to have the same exposure to aided language as that 18-month-old has to spoken language. So that is one of the biggest reasons that this is so important, that we have to totally immerse them in the language that we expect them to be using. I also talk about this sometimes as learning a second language. So I'm a native English speaker, and if I was learning German, one of the best ways for me to do that would be to go to Germany and hear nothing but German, because you're forced to kind of figure it out and you're just totally immersed in it and hearing it every day, seeing it every day, speaking it every day. And so that's the opportunity we want to give our AAC learners too. So I guess I got a little bit ahead of myself here, but why model that language immersion piece? It also helps support comprehension. So we know a lot of our students who maybe have some cognitive needs benefit from the use of visuals to help them understand our spoken language. So when we model on the device, it kind of takes some of that cognitive load or pressure off of their receptive language skills or language processing skills. So it's a built-in visual support. And then it demonstrates what we want them to do, what we want them to be doing. We demonstrate the correct production of those targets. So I have a few examples here. I have three actually that I want to show you. This first one is how you might model during shared reading.
Okay, here we go. Brown bear, what?
What
Do you see? I see a red bird looking at me. Red bird, what?
What?
What do you see? What's a red bird gonna see? It says, I see a yellow duck looking at me. Yellow duck, yellow duck.
What?
What do you see?
So you can see in that video that her target word that she's modeling or that her student is working on, or it's their word of the week or whatever system they have set up, is what. So she's not going through and modeling every single word in the story. She has picked a target word that we are working on, that we are focusing on, and a book that goes along with that word. So for whatever reason, they're working on the word what. So that's how you might do that during shared reading. I've also used this same book actually when we're talking about animals with preschoolers, and we can talk about colors, and we can talk about what do you see, what do I see, what does he see, what does she see, all these different kinds of ways we can use some of the same materials. But so that's an example of how you might be doing shared reading with some AAC modeling. This one, I'm sorry, is just adorable. But I don't know if these are brothers or just friends or what's going on here, but the little guy on the right-hand side of your screen is talking to this other little guy about all the things that can go. And you can see that the adult on the left-hand side is modeling that on this little guy's device.
Lots of things can go.
Good reading. Go.
Cars go.
They do. Cars go.
Trains go.
Trains go.
Trucks go.
Trucks go.
Boats go.
Philip, do boats go? They do. You're right. Boats go. Look at that.
Planes go.
Planes go.
So obviously the target word that they are working on there is go. And you can see that she modeled that a bunch of times without him really looking at what she was doing or anything like that. She's just pretty passively, every time the little boy that's reading says go, she says, oh yes, those go, those go. And then right before he uses that word, she asks him, I don't know, it sounded like Philip maybe, do trains go? And he goes and points, he turns to his device and uses go. And then you can see how proud of himself he is. So that's a really simple way, again, using some kind of book, or I don't know if they're looking at an app, I'm not sure what they're looking at there, but a way to just continually model whatever your target word is. And finally, this is like a poster that a teacher has in front of the class, big poster, and she is modeling to the entire class. So if you are a classroom teacher or maybe an SLP that's working with a teacher, I love this because, you know, like I kind of mentioned, not only does it model for our AAC users, but if we're working with other students who might have some disabilities or students who are younger, this provides some visual support to understand the information as well. So let's look at how you might model to a whole class.
Yes! Thumbs up! Today is gonna be a good day.
Are you ready?
Guess what? Guess what? We got something. But we do not know what in it.
Yes.
Wait a second. Wait. Whoa. What do I have? What did we get?
So So that teacher does an awesome job picking out some core words in whatever she's saying to just model that language and help those students in her classroom understand what she's saying, and maybe give them some vocabulary to ask her, what did we get? So this, of course, takes some familiarity with doing this over and over, but I promise you that kids are forgiving. And so if you mess it up or you take a little bit longer, it's going to be okay. And so in the first two videos, that was something, you know, they're working on a core word, working on something pretty specific, excuse me. And then in this last video, there's just some modeling of those core words throughout what that teacher is saying. So neither one is better than the other. I would encourage you to do both. So types of modeling, there are some different ways we can do this. One of them is parallel talk. And so for parallel talk, you use that AAC system, again, whether it's high tech, low tech, doesn't matter, to describe what that child is hearing, seeing, or doing. So when I was working on this, I'm pretending in my mind that maybe I'm working with a little guy who is, you know, maybe has a fire truck and a fireman or something like that. And so I have here, hopefully you guys can see this, my universal core vocabulary board, which I discussed in the core vocabulary webinar. So if you want to know more about this, I would encourage you to watch that. So maybe we're playing along and I'm just narrating what that child is doing. So he's taking the little fireman guy and putting him in the truck. And so when I'm saying to him, when I'm doing that parallel talk, I'm also using my board. So I might be saying, oh, you put him in. And I'm pointing to the word in. I'm not sure how well that shows up. Or I could model, oh, you put him in. So depending on where my child is at, I could model one word, I could model two words, I can model you, he, in. And then the next thing that happens, I'm just narrating that, and it might be, oh, look, he fell out. So I might say for that one, not in. Oh, look, out. I might say, look, he not in. I wouldn't say that, but look, he's not in. So what I would model was the words, look, he not in. And so we are verbally saying the correct model, you know, with the correct grammar and all the words and that kind of stuff. But what we're modeling is just those single words that have that meaning. And so then, oh, you helped him get back in. So I might be modeling the word help during that time. Oh, you helped him get back in. You helped him get back in. And so depending on the language level of your child, there are different ways to model different levels. Another way you might be doing that is self-talk. So just like parallel talk where you're describing what the child is doing, self-talk tells them what I'm doing. So this is what I'm hearing, seeing, or doing. So this, you know, we're playing along and I say, oh, I see him running. So what I might be modeling is I look. And so even though that says look, the concept is that I'm seeing, you know, look and see. I'm telling the child that my attention with my eyes is somewhere, using the word look or see. So I might be modeling he go because I'm talking about I'm seeing him running and going somewhere. And so it's more important that you're using the concepts of these words. So giving the verbal model, that's correct, but the concept behind these words is what's important. Because if a student was communicating using this and that student said he go, I would know what he meant. You know, if I had the little guy and that student communicated to me he go, I would know what he wanted. And so the meaning behind this is what's important. So I might say, I wonder where he's going, and model using the words where, go. I could say, oh, I'm going to put him away. And we might be using the words put, in, or I put. So if you have just these simple boards, these are free. You can model throughout your entire day just by narrating what the child is seeing or hearing or doing, or what I'm seeing or hearing or doing, all those environmental kind of things. One other important part of modeling is recasting, which is something we do a lot with little kids just naturally. So that's giving them an immediate response to whatever they've communicated to you, keeping their message, but modeling something corrected or longer. So if that child has said to me, you know, if they've used their device or their board and have said, go, what I verbally would be saying is, yes, he is going. And maybe what I'm modeling on my board here is he go. Oh, yes, he is going. And so I have taken what the child communicated, go, and I have added one more thing to it. I've said, oh, yes, he is going. And so if that child has communicated to me, turn, which is this green circle right here, I might say, oh, yeah, you can have a turn. And what I'm modeling is you turn. So this is what it looks like. Oh, yeah, you can have a turn. And then a few seconds later, I can model, oh, can I have a turn? Can I have a turn? So if that child is using one word, we're just gonna take it one step further. And so maybe that student is a two-word communicator and has said to you, I put. So what I might say is, oh, yes, you did put him in. That's what I'm saying. You put him in. And what I'm modeling is you put him in. You put him in. And so I just took what that child was saying, those two words, I added one more thing. Kept the same meaning of the message, just am expanding on what the child is saying. And this, you know, if you have a student who's in 4 or 5 words, maybe what I'm communicating is a plural S or an ED or an ING or something like that. I like this visual. I call this the one-up language style. So if you're thinking about how you can expand on what a child is saying, you can add an adjective. So if that child has said tower, I could say big tower, tall tower, blue tower, cool tower, 2 towers. So you can add an adjective. You can do a synonym or an antonym. So if the child says big, I might say, yeah, that's huge. Or if the child has said big, I might say it is big, that's not small. And so these are things that we do naturally, I think, with little kids. And so it's important to do this with our AAC users as well. So strategies. So what can you do? How can you make this successful? I think it's important to remember when modeling language, it might be only you talking at first, especially if we have a student who's new to a system or new to a device. It might just be you talking and the child not really giving much input, which I want, if you're an SLP or early childhood educator or whatever you're doing, I want you to remember is normal. You know, I've worked with plenty of 2-year-olds that I'm just babbling away and that 2-year-old isn't saying a word back to me. And so a language delay is a language delay is a language delay. That just because, you know, this 2-year-old that's not speaking yet isn't responding back to me doesn't mean I stop talking to that kid. And so if I'm working with a 6-year-old who's using an AAC device and I'm modeling and blabbering and going on, just because that student's not responding to me with the device doesn't mean that I stop. So it's not about the talking. I mean, it is, but what you're focusing on first is that you're sharing the experience and doing something together and giving that child the information and the experience they need to start to understand their new system of communication. So I have some do's and don'ts here. So one of the do's for modeling is to focus on keywords. And I think I kind of showed you that in my example with my core word board, is that focus on those keywords and think about typical language development. You know, if this student has just started with AAC, we don't expect perfect grammar. We don't expect 5-word sentences any more than we would expect perfect grammar or 5-word sentences from that 18-month-old in the beginning of the example. So focus on those keywords that give the most meaning as a good place to start or a good place to work through that. Do let students see you search for words. So you can see when I was modeling to you, even though I've used this core word board a million times, it's a little bit different doing it this way on Zoom. But let them see you search. It's okay. It's okay to not be perfect, and it's okay for them to know that sometimes we have to pause and look for a word. And that that's normal. You know, if you think about we as adults, speaking people will often be like, oh, yeah, that name for that thing, you know, and, you know, search through our mental vocabulary for something that we've forgotten the word for, or it's on the tip of my tongue and I just can't say it. So let kids know that that's okay, and model that you're searching for something, or if you've hit the wrong button on a high-tech device, it's okay to say, ooh, that's not what I meant. You know, so don't think it has to be perfect. That you can only show them the exact right way to do things, because we all stumble when we're speaking. And so that's totally normal. Do include verbal language with your model. So we always want to be giving them both the verbal model so they can hear that and understand that, and the AAC models as a language immersion technique. Model one level above this student, which I kind of talked about already, with the one-up language styles. So this kind of goes into a don't. On the other side, there is don't worry about what you don't know. To expand on something, you only need to know one more word in the sentence, or than the student has, one more word in a sentence than the student has used. So it's totally okay if you are not an expert in the system and you are learning right along with the student. So they're, you know, if they're using 2 words and you're learning 3 words, that's perfectly fine, and you're learning in tandem, and that's okay. And again, don't think it has to be perfect, because if I communicated on my device with you, I go store, get apple, you know exactly what I mean. And when the student is ready to learn more about morphology and grammar and sentence structure and those kinds of things, then you have built-in targets and goals and ways to work with that student. So just down at the bottom then, I have an example. So if the student is not yet using single words on their AAC system, it's pretty new, or they're just, it's going slower than you hoped, you can use 1 word. So what you're saying verbally is, we're going to the library, and what you're modeling on the device is go. And so that you're just modeling 1 word. That student's at 0 words, you're modeling 1. Likewise, if that student is using the word go, which is great, still say, we're going to the library, and now you're modeling go library. So you're teaching them that that there can be something that comes after go that gets you where you want to be, so that they can start requesting go library, go class, go home, go car, whatever that is. I wanted to show you, I think this is an important note, this AAC prompting hierarchy, because I think it will help you when you are modeling and modeling and modeling, and then expecting a response from the student, some ways to work through that. So this is a handout that is available to you guys. And so there's just, I imagine a lot of you have seen prompting hierarchies before, but there's a few just specific things for AAC in this one. So our first least intrusive prompt is just an expectant pause. So I might get out these really fun toys and I put them over here on my side, and the kid's sitting over here. on my left side, and I'm just like looking at the kid like really excited, you know, so I'm just waiting. And that kind of can lead into number 2. So if that kid's doing nothing, I might lean in closer. And, you know, I'm looking really excited, and I'm maybe shrugging my shoulders like, hey, do you see this cool stuff? But I'm not saying anything yet. Or you might use an indirect verbal prompt. So I've got my toys over here and the kid over here, and I'm like, what should we do? So I haven't told them anything specific that, you know, I have a car and some bubbles, and I'm hoping for go and turn. This is my targets. I want a turn with the car, a turn with the bubbles. I want something to go. I haven't given them any clues about what vocabulary I'm looking for. I'm just saying, oh, what should we do? Hoping that will cue them in to initiate something. And so number 4 is to ask for a response. And so still the kid's not giving me anything. I can be more direct and say, tell me what you want. Ask me for something. And, you know, then hope that they'll respond to that direct request. If that's still not working, I might have my board out, right? So they've got their device, I've got my board. And I might, you know, pick this up and start looking at it and looking at it. And maybe I'm kind of, so here's go, right? I'm kind of cueing them into, I think, something around here, and giving them a gesture to kind of bring their attention to, hey, I'm expecting something, and this is a cue to where it is. So they're still not responding. You can use a partial verbal prompt. So go, it might be, ooh, something that the car can do is, and hope that they're going to say go, right? And so still I have nothing. And so then I might be like, oh, go car. And then I drive the car around and make it super fun, you know? So I've modeled go, and then I drive the car, and maybe I model again, go. So before I have not touched the student at all. I'm still just modeling and hoping that they're going to do the same thing. And finally, our last one is a physical assist. And so if I can tell that kid is just super excited about this car and really wants that, I could do, this is hand over hand, and I don't like that, but I've never remade this graphic. Hand under hand is always best for our AAC users. So if this is my child's hand, I might take my hand underneath and kind of help them get there. And so we always want to use hand under hand, so that child sees that as an extension of their body. And I know, like, in an ideal world, you could also have maybe mom or dad or a parent or another teacher or whoever behind the student, coming from behind them. And so they see that hand as an extension coming from behind them. That's much more natural than if I'm across the table or area or whatever, and reaching out and using that child's hand to kind of come back towards me. So if you can, that's helpful. I know staffing, that's not always a realistic thing, but I would always recommend hand under hand to help that child get there. And so remember, with prompting, we always want to fade that. And so as quickly as we can fade that, the better. So I might, have a student who right now, I needed a physical assist to get them to say go. So I do that once and they think it's great. And then I bump back to modeling again. And I said, oh, that car can go, and see if they'll do it, and take away that prompt and try to work them towards more independence. We don't want prompt dependent kids. So as soon as you can move back up to the top of this prompting hierarchy, the better, because that gives us more independence. Okay, a few additional resources here. This is an article from a website that's called Use AAC to Teach AAC. You can see the website here. It's from Assistiveware. I think this is a great parent resource. I love to give this to parents. It tells you it's an 11-minute read, and it explains modeling in very simple terms, very parent-friendly, very teacher-friendly. community friendly. If there's a sibling, if there's a para, whatever, it just walks through basic, what is modeling, how to start, why is it important, why should you do it, when should you do it, how do you do it, all that kind of stuff. So this is a great resource to start off with, talking about the basics. And then I think this is a great teacher resource. So this is all about how do we model AAC in the classroom. And this is one of the handouts that I've provided you with. And this is more geared at teachers. I love this graphic. I use this graphic a lot in presentations. And so it just, it shows teachers that our input really needs to match our output. So spoken language, if the input they're getting is spoken and the output you're expecting is spoken. But if the output you're expecting is aided language, but you're inputting spoken language, that doesn't match up. And so this talks to teachers about the importance of modeling in the classroom, why we should do it, what are we talking about, how can we get started, and just some practical things for teachers. Okay, and this is what I will leave you with for this webinar. And I get a lot of questions or people being worried about, I don't know how to teach AAC, I don't know how to teach AAC. And it's not about teaching the AAC. It's about making conversations. It's about forming relationships. It's about capturing motivation and sharing interest. And those things will come. If you're using these strategies, these modeling strategies, those things will come. And I also, I hear from SLPs that are nervous, that are like, oh, I don't know how to do AAC therapy. And AAC therapy is language therapy. And I hope that's something this webinar has kind of taught you, is that these are strategies that we use with a lot of our kids who are learning language or maybe have language delays. It's just that our input is different and we're expecting different output. So thank you so much for spending time with me. Here's my email address. If you guys have any questions at all, please email me. I love to talk about this kind of stuff, and I'd be happy to talk to you more or answer any questions you have. Thanks.
Thank you for watching this webinar. For more information on the ATP Education Program, please visit our website at atp.nebraska.gov or email us at atp.education@nebraska.gov.